I'm excited to dive into some Ever After High fan theories and headcanons today. I've ranked them from the most believable to the most, okay, that's kinda wild, territory. Grab a cup of tea, Mad Hatter would approve, and let's get started. First up, let's tackle a timeline head-scratcher that actually has a pretty sensible answer. How does Raven Queen even exist if her mom, the evil queen, has been imprisoned in the mirror realm for 100 years? In the Dragon Game special, the evil queen dramatically says something like, "I'll show you what 100 years trapped in a mirror is like," which made a lot of us go, wait, 100 years? How is Raven not a century old then? The simple explanation is that the evil queen was sealed away after Raven was born, not before. Raven grew up with her dad, the Good King, while Mom was locked up. So that 100 years line might just be the evil queen being extra, or using a figure of speech. You know, villains love to exaggerate. Maybe time flows differently in the mirror realm, or she was just referring to the classic Sleeping Beauty curse length for dramatic effect. Either way, it low-key makes sense that Raven was born normally and Evil Queen got imprisoned later. No weird magic baby conjuring needed. The Ever After High timeline can be wonky, but this theory basically says, don't overthink it. Raven's existence isn't a paradox. Her mom had her before getting mirror jailed. It's one of the more straightforward theories, and I buy it because the alternative is way too complicated, even for a fairy tale. Now onto something a bit more magical. The Storybook of Legends. Is it cursed or what? This theory is pretty believable and even hinted at in the show. Remember Legacy Day in the webisodes? Everyone was freaking out about signing the Storybook of Legends because it would seal their destinies. Raven refused to sign, which was a huge deal. The theory goes that the Storybook of Legends is literally a magically binding contract. Once you sign your name, boom, you're locked into living out your parents' story, no matter how you feel about it. It's like the book is enchanted, possibly cursed, to enforce the traditional story paths. In the series, Headmaster Grimm was so adamant about everyone signing that he even used a fake storybook at one point to keep up the charade. They had people believing that if you didn't sign, you'd lose your story or even fade out of existence. Total lie, by the way, but the fact that students believed it shows how powerful the book's reputation is. In the end, Apple finds out the truth. The storybook's power was being manipulated to control everyone. So the fan theory expands on this. Maybe the real storybook has dark magic woven into it, ensuring that written destiny equals destiny fulfilled. It's basically a fancy, sinister contract. Honestly, this one low-key makes sense because it explains why everyone, especially Apple, was so nervous about Raven not signing. Apple wasn't just being uptight. If the book is magically binding, Raven's refusal could have serious ripple effects on their world. In short, the Storybook of Legends might not be just a record of destinies. It could be the very spell that forces those destinies to happen. Kinda spooky, right? Raven was right to be suspicious. Next, let's talk about the Madeline Hatter. There's a fun theory that Maddie is immune to hypnosis or mind control because her mind operates on Wonderland logic. This is one of those theories that isn't explicitly shown on screen, but when you think about it, it fits perfectly. Maddie literally sees outside of reality. She can hear the narrators of the show and often breaks the fourth wall to chat with them. In the webisodes, she'll randomly respond to the narrator like, "Yes, I can hear you," while everyone else is like, "What?" Because she's from Wonderland, her brain just doesn't follow the normal rules. So the theory is, if a villain like the Evil Queen or the Snow King tried to hypnotize or brainwash the students, Maddie would be the one girl who's like, "Nah, I'm good." Mind control spells might just slide off her, because you can't trick someone who's already a little mad and sees through the story. We haven't seen an exact scene of this. Unfortunately, no episode where the whole school goes zombie walk and Maddie's the only one snapping her fingers like, snap out of it, guys. But fans love this idea. It's both hilarious and plausible. Think about it. Her best friend is Kitty Cheshire, who can literally disappear and warp reality, and Maddie still just rolls with it. She's that unfazed by weirdness. So yeah, Maddie being immune to hypnosis is a cute headcanon that kinda reflects her Wonderland awesomeness. She's too mad to be meddled with, in the best possible way. All right, time to spill some porridge on Blondie Locks and her mom, Goldilocks. Ever notice how defensive Blondie is about proving she's just right and totally royal? She runs her own Mirrorcast show, digs up secrets, and is obsessed with legacy and reputation. But here's the tea. Goldilocks' story, breaking and entering the Three Bears' house, doesn't exactly make her royal. It kind of makes her a criminal, if we're being honest. So this theory suggests that Blondie is hiding her mom's criminal past. In fact, some fans go further to say Goldilocks was a legendary thief or crime leader in the fairy tale world. Maybe sneaking into the Bear family's cottage was just one of many heists. Imagine Goldilocks as this notorious burglar, stealing magical items and never getting caught. A real criminal mastermind. If that's true, Blondie would definitely be embarrassed. She puts on this whole, I'm a perfect lady, a future queen act to overcompensate. When people question her royal status, since her mom is basically a storybook outlaw, Blondie gets super touchy. She'd much rather people focus on her investigative reporting and big scoop stories than ask, hey, wasn't your mom kind of a delinquent? It's kinda wild, but it would explain a lot. In the books and webisodes, there are hints that Blondie really wants to distance herself from any idea that she's not true royalty. For example, there's gossip in Ever After that Blondie might actually be adopted into royalty or something, and she hates that talk. If Goldilocks has a shady past, Blondie's determination to craft a squeaky clean image makes sense. She's basically rebranding the Locks family name. So the next time Blondie is totally flipping out about honesty and things being just right, maybe she's also internally freaking out that someone will discover her mom is more Robin Hood than fairy princess. This theory doesn't have concrete proof in the show, but it's one of those fan ideas that fits so well with the character's behavior that you can't help but nod and go, you know, I could see it. Next up is a theory about Faybelle Thorne, our favorite wannabe dark fairy. On the surface, Faybelle is all, I love being evil, I can't wait to curse Sleeping Beauty, and she has that mischievous cheerleader vibe going. But this theory gives her character some depth. Faybelle desperately wants to be the big bad villain because she had a rough past and a lot to prove. In the books, and a bit in the webisodes, we learn that Raven's mother, yes, the overachieving evil queen, kind of stole the dark fairy's thunder in Sleeping Beauty's story. Basically, the evil queen shoved aside the fairy who was supposed to cast the sleeping curse, that fairy being Faybelle's mom, the dark fairy of that generation, and did it herself, presumably to show off how wicked she is. Talk about stealing someone's spotlight. Because of that, the whole Sleeping Beauty curse timeline got messed up. Briar Beauty's mom, Sleeping Beauty, was cursed by the wrong person, and Faybelle's mother never got to fulfill her destiny. So imagine being Faybelle. Your mom is known as the dark fairy who didn't get to do the one big thing dark fairies are supposed to do. Awkward. Maybe her mom was disgraced, or at least really bitter about it. Faybelle grew up in that shadow, feeling like she has to double down on the evil shtick to be taken seriously. It's like she's saying, look at me, I can be just as terrifying as the evil queen. I deserve to be the villain. There's actually a bit of this in Dragon games. Faybelle teams up with the evil queen for a hot minute, probably thinking it'll make her more legit as a villain. But deep down, you get the sense Faybelle isn't truly rotten. She's more of a tryhard. This theory makes her almost sympathetic. she's overcompensating for what her family lost. She had a rough go, always being told to amp up the wickedness because her mom's legacy was stolen. So her being a royal, she is classified as a royal at school, isn't because she's mean by nature, but because she's clinging to the role her family is supposed to play. Honestly, this explanation low-key makes me feel for Faybelle. It's like, behind the hexes and snark, there's a girl who just wants her family's story to matter again. And hey, it does align with canon stuff we know from the books, which makes it pretty believable as far as fan theories go. Moving on to a sweeter subject with a dash of dark. Gingerbread House, daughter of the Candy Witch, and her surprising connection to Raven Queen. Ginger is literally one of the sweetest characters. She loves to bake, and she's a rebel because, well, she doesn't want to eat kids like her mom did in the Hansel and Gretel tale. Can't blame her. The theory here is that Ginger apprenticed at the evil queen's castle one summer and ended up bonding with Raven during that time. Now, this isn't from any episode or book, but it's a headcanon that floats around because it's just so plausible and adorable. Picture this. Ginger's mom, the Candy Witch, thinks Ginger is too soft and wants her to learn a bit about dark magic. So she sends Ginger to intern at the former evil queen's castle. Maybe the place is abandoned or under royal custody after the evil queen got banished. Ginger is there organizing potion ingredients, testing out gingerbread recipes in a cauldron, and kind of getting a feel for villain life in a safe way. Now enter Raven Queen, who might visit her mom's old castle either out of curiosity or to make sure none of her mom's leftover spells are causing trouble. Raven finds this cute younger girl, Ginger, trying to mix cupcake batter in a villainous laboratory and is like, "Hey, need a hand?" They strike up a friendship over this shared experience of, yeah, our moms are notorious, but we're totally different. Raven could help Ginger control any dark magic in the recipes, and Ginger could bake Raven some comfort treats while they chat about carving their own destinies. How wholesome is that for a villain lair meetup? There's even a tiny nod in the canon that Ginger isn't afraid to be around bad witches. In one webisode, she helps bake a pie with Raven's magic or tests a recipe to help friends. She often uses baking to solve problems. So she's definitely brave enough to handle the evil queen's kitchen. Fans love this theory because Raven and Ginger are such an unlikely duo that totally makes sense once you think about it. Two rebels with sugary hearts bonding in a spooky castle. It also gives Ginger a cool side story and emphasizes how kind Raven is to younger students. While this summer apprenticeship at Castle Evil never happened on screen, it's one of those feel-good theories that I secretly wish was a webisode. Now let's talk about the Charming family because, oh boy, there's some juicy theorizing there. On paper, Daring, Darling, and Dexter Charming are the golden kids of Ever After. Handsome Prince, Brave Princess, and Itsy Bitsy Nerdy Prince, respectively. But the theory is that the Charming family is actually pretty dysfunctional behind the scenes, with secrets like Darling's hidden heritage and Daring's memory being tampered with. Where do we even start? Okay, Darling Charming first. Remember in Dragon Games when Darling broke the curse on Apple White with True Love's kiss? Yes, that happened. Apple was poisoned, again, and it was Darling's kiss that woke her, not Daring's. That was a major twist, and one of my favorite moments, TBH. Some fans took that and ran with it. Why is Darling the one with that special power? One idea is that the Charming's mother, Queen Charming, or an ancestor might actually be a fairy, perhaps even a fairy godmother type figure. If Darling has fairy blood, it could explain why her kiss had magical oomph and why she's so drawn to being a hero. It's like there's literal magic in her that goes beyond the typical princess role. This is speculative, but imagine if Queen Charming was secretly part fairy or had a fairy godmother who blessed Darling at birth or something. That would certainly be a family secret to hide, given the whole royal, rebel, strict roles. It would also mean Darling's breaking of the damsel in distress mold isn't just personality. It's in her genes to be a savior. Kinda cool, right? Now on to Daring Charming, the eldest brother with the million-watt smile, who got a rude awakening in the epic winter special. For those who don't know, Daring found out that he wasn't actually destined to be Apple's Prince Charming at all. Instead, he was the surprise beast destined for Rosabella Beauty's story. Talk about a plot twist. He literally turned into the beast, fur, fangs, and all, due to a curse, and Rosabella had to break the curse with a kiss. After that, Daring was kind of left in identity limbo, like, so I'm not the Prince Charming of Snow White's tale. What now? Here's where the memory wipe/cover-up theory comes in. The Charming family, especially King Charming, their dad, is super invested in their image of heroic, perfect royalty. Having your son revealed as a hairy beast in front of the whole kingdom? Yeah, that's not a good look in their eyes. Some fans speculate that Daring's parents, or Headmaster Grimm, who is always meddling, tried to hush up that incident. Maybe they spun a story that it was just a prank gone wrong or a spell mishap. Or they could have gone full magical Men in Black and wiped Daring's memory of the whole beastly ordeal to spare him the trauma, and themselves the embarrassment. Daring did seem pretty disoriented and even in denial after it happened. In the EAH webisodes, he's so confident and smug. You can imagine how a guy like that would handle, "Oh, by the way, you're actually Beauty's cursed beast." Probably not well. So a memory charm isn't out of the question. Headmaster Grimm had done sketchy things like that before. There were hints he kept students in the dark about their true destinies to keep the timeline on track. It's also possible the whole Charming clan had a serious talk and decided to bury that info to keep Daring's princely reputation shiny. They might even plan to quietly set him up as the next beast in secret. Who knows? The dysfunction angle is that instead of addressing these issues openly, the Charming family sweeps it under the royal rug. Darling's out here secretly training to be a hero behind Dad's back, Dexter's crushing on Raven, a rebel, which probably annoys the keep it in the royal circle vibe, and Daring's true fate is something they're actively hiding. It's like a fairy tale soap opera in that family, I swear. This theory doesn't have a big neon sign in the show saying, "Yep, true," but it's pieced together from lots of smaller clues and the general sense that the Charmings care a ton about legacy and appearances. It definitely makes them more interesting, and honestly, more relatable, to imagine they have these internal struggles. After all, every family's got issues, even ones that literally call themselves charming. Speaking of family issues, let's circle back to Raven's family and some timeline weirdness. We touched on this earlier with Faybelle's situation, but here's the bigger picture. The evil queen might have stolen the Dark Fairy's destiny, totally messing up the Sleeping Beauty curse timeline. In Ever After High's lore, especially in the books, it's revealed that the evil queen, being the overachiever villain she is, cast the sleeping curse on Sleeping Beauty's daughter when that job was meant for Briar's fairy, Faybelle's mom. So, effectively, she poached the role of Maleficent, if you will. Now, the classic Sleeping Beauty curse is sleep for 100 years, right? If the evil queen did that curse a generation ago, it raises eyebrows. How is she still a relatively young mom now? Shouldn't she be like 100-something years old? This is where fans put on their tinfoil crowns and theorize. One idea. The evil queen is older than she looks. Maybe she used a youth potion, or time in the mirror realm kept her preserved. We do know she's vain, so wouldn't be surprising if she had a magic cream for those wrinkles. Another idea, courtesy of some hardcore timeline geeks, is that fairies have a longer lifespan. So Faybelle's mother could conceivably still be alive 100+ years later. Perhaps the evil queen cursing an earlier Sleeping Beauty, Briar's mom or grandma, isn't as crazy if you assume fairy tale characters can live a long time, or there was a time jump somewhere. There's also the notion of time travel or time loops. Maybe Raven's mom found a way to nip into the past to perform that curse and then returned. That one's really speculative, but hey, Wonderland has time-twisty stuff, so not impossible. My favorite spin on this theory is that the dark fairy line, Faybelle's family, only gets to actually curse a princess every 100 years. So if one dark fairy is skipped, thanks, evil queen, it means Faybelle's mom's destiny was basically stolen, and now Faybelle is stuck waiting for her turn a century later, or something. It's complicated, but it actually gives a solid motive for why Faybelle is so keen on being seen as the evil fairy. Her family's honor kinda depends on eventually doing that curse properly. In any case, the evil queen meddling where she didn't belong threw the story order out of whack. And Ever After High does show consequences of story mix-ups. That's a big theme. So I find this theory quite plausible, especially since part of it is outright mentioned in the books. Applewhite even comments on the evil queen crashing baby Briar's party, if I recall. It's a neat way to explain both Raven's existence timing and Faybelle's attitude. Also, it's a reminder that Raven's mom wasn't just content with her own story, Snow White. She literally wanted to be the baddest of all stories. That's next-level ambition. The only downside of this theory is it makes the timeline a headache to figure out. But hey, what's a fairy tale without a little timey-wimey magic? Now let's get beastly. This theory is about Rosabella Beauty, who, as we know, is the daughter of Beauty and the Beast. Rosabella is known for her big heart and her activism for beast rights. She loves beasts and creatures, believes in equality, for all that good stuff. But some fans think there's a more personal reason she's so connected to beasts. The beast's curse might be generational, and Rosabella could secretly have a monster form of her own. Essentially, even though Rosabella's dad was cured of being a beast when her mom, Belle, fell in love with him, perhaps the magic left a mark on their bloodline. Maybe Rosabella inherited a dormant version of the curse. The theory imagines that Rosabella sometimes feels the beast stirring inside her, like if she loses her temper or under a full moon or something fairy tale-ish like that, she might start getting fangy and furry. How would she handle this? Well, being the prepared girl she is, she could have a magical artifact to keep it under control. Perhaps an enchanted locket or a potion she drinks that keeps her looking 100% human. It's a very Monster High-esque concept, but we're all for crossovers. More on that soon. Are there clues? A few tiny ones, if you squint. For instance, Rosabella's doll profile once joked her throat gets sore from roaring about injustice. Roaring, huh? Not just yelling. And in the webisodes, when she gets passionate, she can be surprisingly fierce. Maybe that's the beast peeking through. Also, Rosabella has those golden brown highlights in her hair, and sometimes wears fur accents. Fashion nod to her beast heritage, perhaps? Okay, that might be a reach, but it's fun to think about. This theory is on the wilder side, pun intended, but it's still plausible in a magical world. Curses in fairy tales can be passed down. Just look at Duchess Swan. She's doomed to repeat her mom's tragic dance story, for example. If Rosabella did have a monstrous side, it would actually make her character even cooler. She loves beasts partly because she is one, and she understands them on a deeper level. Imagine a scene where Rosabella's magic amulet breaks, and she starts turning all werewolfy, and her friends have to help her through it, teaching her that she can be loved even with a curse. It'd flip her usual script. Nothing like that happened in the show, but as a theory, I'd rank this as wild but wonderful. It doesn't contradict anything, since the beast's curse breaking isn't heavily explained, could be imperfect, and it gives Rosabella a secret struggle that matches her compassionate personality. Pretty epic headcanon, right? All right, Now we're really going to push the storybook boundaries. Ever After High and Monster High crossover theories. Let's discuss. This one posits that the worlds of Ever After High and Monster High are connected, and some Monster High characters are actually fairy tale characters who just ended up at the wrong school. The prime example fans love to bring up is Mousadie's King from Monster High. If you're not familiar, Mousadie's is an MH character who's basically a mouse were-person, like a humanoid mouse, and calls herself the Princess of Boo York, Monster High's monsterfied New York. Crucially, her dad is the Rat King. Yes, as in the Rat King from the Nutcracker story. Now, Nutcracker might be a ballet, but in the fairy tale folklore sphere, the Mouse King is a legit character. So if Mousadie's is the daughter of the Rat King, technically, she's fairy tale royalty. By that logic, she could have gone to Ever After High instead of Monster High. The theory suggests maybe there's some overlap or mix-up in the realms, like the children of Storybook characters who happen to be monsters can choose, or are assigned, to Monster High, even if they have fairy tale roots. There's even official material that hints at a connected universe. The Monster High/Ever After High Legend of Shadow High book has Raven Queen and Apple White teaming up with Frankenstein and Draculaura. They literally meet via some interdimensional magic shenanigans. That means the creators toyed with crossovers for real. In that story, we learn there's the World of Stories, Ever After, and the Monster World, and they have portals linking them. So the fan theory takes that and runs. Maybe Mousadie's, and possibly others like Draculaura, who could be related to a fairy tale vampire count, etc., are actually from the World of Stories, but attend Monster High for a monstrous education, or vice versa. Perhaps characters like Howleen Wolf, little sister of Claudine Wolf, are descendants of the Big Bad Wolf, and thus have fairy tale heritage. It's fun to map these parallels. Like, Cerise Hood in EAH is part wolf due to her dad, and in Monster High, we have Claudine and her whole werewolf family. See the resemblance? Fans love to think there's a broader universe where Ever After High students might have monster cousins or Monster High royals hiding in plain sight. Is it wild? Oh, definitely, because it smashes two distinct franchises together. But the fact that Mattel almost went there, they had plans for a movie crossover that sadly got canned, makes it feel totally plausible to us. Plus, both schools have so much in common. Teenage children of famous beings learning to embrace their identities. A crossover would be seamless. For Mousadie's specifically, the theory often says, what if her story is that the Nutcracker failed and the Mouse King's lineage thrived, making her a princess in that tale? Or perhaps she's a foreign exchange student from the fairy tale world who chose Monster High because, let's be honest, Ever After can be a bit judgy if your dad's a giant evil rat. This kind of theory mostly lives in fan fiction and doll collector discussions, but it's one of the more exciting what-ifs. I mean, picture Raven Queen and Draculaura having a chat about living in their mom's shadows, or Apple White and Frankie Stein bonding over family legacy pressure. It writes itself. So, while not shown on screen, I'd rank the Monster High crossover theory as wild, but not impossible. The kind of thing that could happen with a flick of Raven's wand or a portal through the looking glass. And as a fan, I find that prospect fang-tastic. See what I did there? Now we're entering the top tier of crazy, the theories that will make you question everything, but are ridiculously fun. This one is a fandom classic that flips the entire narrative. Raven Queen and Apple White were switched at birth. Yep, you heard that right. The idea is that Raven is actually Snow White's biological daughter, and Apple is the evil queen's daughter. Essentially, the babies got swapped, so each girl ended up with the wrong mother. This theory has been around since the early days of the fandom, and it's the definition of kinda wild. Fans point to a few things as evidence, more like coincidences, but hey, let's roll with it. For one, Apple White is, well, blonde. In the Snow White tale, the classic description is hair as black as ebony, skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood. Apple's got the pale skin and red lips, sure, but her golden hair sticks out. In the books, they even mention that Apple is the first Snow White in her family line to have blonde hair, which caused some murmurs in her kingdom. Now consider Raven. She's got the Snow White-esque dark hair, and who else has that? Snow White's mother, the previous Snow White. Meanwhile, Raven's mom, the evil queen, in many depictions actually has lighter hair. In one of the books, young evil queen had white blonde hair as a student. Kinda interesting swap there. Then there's personality. Apple is a little too obsessed with being fairest, following rules and getting her happily ever after at any cost. Not saying she's evil, but she's certainly got some controlling tendencies. Remember how frustrated and almost scheming she got when Raven initially refused to sign the book? Apple had some dark moments pushing her. Who does that sound like? Maybe a certain evil queen in the making? Raven, on the other hand, is super kind, modest, and selfless, traits you'd expect from, oh, I don't know, Snow White's daughter, perhaps. She's basically princess material at heart, despite her edgy appearance and magic powers. Some fans even joke that Raven is more of a Snow White than Apple will ever be. So if they were switched, it would explain a lot. Apple's aggressive need to be Snow White, overcompensating because deep down she isn't one, and Raven's innate goodness because she's Snow's kid. And story-wise, it's poetic. The evil queen's biological daughter would be the beloved princess, and Snow White's biological daughter would have the potential for darkness. Nature and nurture completely crisscrossed. How would this switch have happened? The theory doesn't always agree. Sometimes it's an accidental hospital mix-up. Boring. Other times, it's a deliberate swap by, say, the evil queen to mess with Snow White, or by Snow White to protect Raven from a villainous upbringing. More on that next theory. Now, as juicy as this all is, let's be real. It's not supported by the actual show/books. In fact, the whole message of Ever After High is that who your parents are doesn't define you. Raven can be good even though her mom's evil. Apple could make questionable choices, even though her mom's the symbol of good. If they were switched at birth, it kind of undercuts that theme by saying, oh, Raven's good because she was Snow's daughter all along. So I personally see this theory as a fun fan fiction scenario, rather than something that would ever be canon. Many fans agree it's entertaining, but they wouldn't want it officially true. Still, it's a hella popular theory in the fandom and sparks lots of debates. If nothing else, it's a testament to how clever fans are at noticing little quirks like Apple's hair color and spinning an epic yarn out of it. Definitely one of the wildest theories that's just plausible enough to make you double take. All right, we've reached the grand finale of wild theories. Drumroll, please. This one's unhinged, but hear me out. It claims that Snow White had a secret crush on the evil queen and actually swapped their babies on purpose. Mic drop. I know. What? This theory takes the previous switched at birth idea and cranks it to 11 on the crazy scale. But it's so unhinged that it's kind of brilliant in a soap opera way. Let's unpack this madness. The story goes that Snow White, yes, the Snow White, apple poisoning victim and symbol of true love's purity, actually had a sort of forbidden love or admiration for her evil stepmother, the evil queen. Maybe the evil queen wasn't always 100% awful, or maybe Snow has a thing for powerful bad girls, who knows? The theory imagines that Snow White saw something in the evil queen that no one else did, a kind of twisted devotion. Now, Fast forward to when Snow White and the evil queen both become mothers. In Ever After High's timeline, the evil queen had Raven and Snow White had Apple, presumably around the same time period. According to this theory, Snow White, in her somewhat misguided, loving way, swapped her newborn, Apple, with the evil queen's newborn, Raven. Her possible motivations? Perhaps Snow White wanted to spare the evil queen's child from being raised by a villain in a mirror prison. If Snow secretly loved the evil queen, maybe she felt protective of Raven, evil queen's baby, and thought, I'll raise her as my own in a loving environment so she doesn't turn out like her mom. And conversely, maybe Snow was like, evil queen will finally know what love is if she raises my daughter. Another even more scandalous angle? Maybe Snow White wanted a piece of the evil queen to keep with her. Raising the daughter of the woman she loved. Okay, that sounds so twisted, but that's why it's unhinged. So Apple ends up with the evil queen, potentially to fulfill the evil queen's desire of having a powerful heir, or as a way for Snow to give the evil queen something she couldn't have herself, like, here, have my child. It will be like we're bonded. I told you this was soap opera level. This results in Apple being brought up by the evil queen, maybe in secret or via some arrangement with the good king, and Raven being brought up by Snow White's side of the family, hence Raven's dad being the good king and all. It's absolutely bonkers, but it would mean Snow White isn't the innocent dove we thought. She would have been scheming behind the scenes out of an obsessive love. Plot twist of the century, right? Now, disclaimer, there is nothing in the show or books that even remotely suggests Snow White has a thing for the evil queen, or that any baby swap actually happened. In fact, Snow White, Apple's mom, is portrayed as a pretty by-the-book queen who expects her daughter to follow in her footsteps. She doesn't seem to have any lingering fondness for her stepmother, the evil queen. If anything, she's probably still a bit traumatized by that whole trying to kill me situation. So this theory is truly fanfic fuel rather than a serious theory people believe. It's the kind of idea you come up with at 3 a.m. on a fan forum going, what if? And everyone gasps because it's so scandalous and out there. However, the reason I include it is because it's wild, yet oddly creative in how it tries to explain the switched destinies of Raven and Apple. It's like the ultimate ship, Snow Queen, anyone? Meets ultimate retcon. And you wanted wild but still plausible. I'd argue this is barely plausible. But in a fairy tale universe where love spells and identity swaps happen, who's to say it's impossible? It would certainly cast all the characters in a new light. Just imagine Raven finding out her bio-mom is Snow White, and that Snow did this bizarre baby heist out of love for Raven's evil mom. That would mess a girl up. Apple, on the other hand, would learn her real mom is the evil queen. Talk about destiny flipping on its head. It's an insane theory, definitely the most unhinged on this list. But hey, it's a testament to how passionate and imaginative the EAH fandom can be. We'll concoct even a secret romance between arch-enemies if it gives us a juicy story. So, while I don't think this one holds any water in canon, it's a guilty pleasure what-if scenario that's fun to giggle about. Consider this the grand finale of headcanons, not meant to be taken too seriously, but wow, does it make you think for a second? Could they? No, they wouldn't, but imagine if they did. And there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour through Ever After High's fandom imagination. From the plausible to the positively bonkers. We went from simple timeline fixes and cursed books all the way to secret baby swaps and monster school crossovers. Through it all, one thing's clear. Ever After High fans love to speculate and keep the story going, even years after the show ended. Each theory, whether sensible or outlandish, comes from that special place in our hearts that just isn't ready to close the book on these characters. I hope you had as much fun listening as I did telling these tales. Remember, in the end, It's all in good fun. None of these are official. Well, except maybe tiny bits that were hinted at in books. But they show how alive the fandom still is. Thank you for hearing me geek out. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, do me a favor and like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, the end is just the beginning for this channel.